I've managed to collar Mick on day one. One of the things I wanted to know really was this. I mean, it seems to be a classic landscape site for you, where it's one of those places you can hear the sound of the digger in the background, but actually your whole tradition of landscape archaeology is all about things that happened before the excavation. I just wondered,
don't involve excavation.
Don't involve excavation, and you're currently doing a huge project at Shapwick, and I wanted to just get from you, your thoughts about you're here now on this site and the sort of things you're going to be thinking about that are part of that landscape approach.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we've got a church and the manor house up here without a village sort of rings alarm bells straight away, because there ought to be some settlement nearby. Lo and behold, in the field next door is full of earthworks. It's a good start. And in the old days that would probably been it. We'd say church, manor house, earthworks, there was a village. But actually there's still a village here, and it's really only been in the last, I suppose, 10-15 years that we've sort of developed a way of looking at villages which are still occupied, because it's not a respectable research design to bulldoze the village, evict everybody, to get down to it looking like a deserted village underneath. So you've got to work with the people living there, and the strategy that's emerged that seems quite effective is to dig these random test pits. I was talking to Chris Taylor, who's the Great Villages chap. He's saying he'd spent all his life saying we can't do anything with surviving villages, and he said, and now we've got test pits, that's the way to do it. So I'm a great fan of the test pit. And
we had I don't know, seemed like 100 villagers this morning. All they're going to be putting small test pits around their gardens. What's your sort of thoughts about? We'll be looking at pottery from there, and we've got pottery from here. What's the way of, how are we going to analyse what we find, and what will it tell us?
In both cases we're using pottery sherds as indications of date, really. And with test pits you can't do much more than that. They are I always describe as a sort of grab sample of what there is on that site, so that if you dig a 1 metre test pit and you've got 19th century clay pipes, 19th century Staffordshire wares, and then some country wares of the 16th, 17th century, and then a bit of medieval stuff, perhaps 12th, 13th, 14th. All you can really say is that on that site or nearby people are living over that time span. That's really all you can say. But if you get enough of them in a village, you can start saying, well, the whole of this village is occupied over the whole of that length of time. Or like we had at Shapwick, for example, we had 10th century pottery up the middle, but not further out.
I mean, we've got some history with test pits, because virtually one of the first things you and I did together was we did a test pit in the back of a garden 20 years ago.
With the guy hiding behind the beans while we did it. I remember that.
At Roadford.
And the reservoir site.
What was amazing was the amount of stuff that came out of that. Starting with like cinema tickets and bits of ephemera on the top. And I remember you saying everything that comes out is important. It's archaeology, and it for a lot of those kids, they're obviously thrilled to bits. It may be only a small area, but for them that's like real archaeology.
And I mean, the first thing that'll come out almost certainly is plastic toys that they or their elder brothers and sisters have lost, because we get that, and you get middles out of batteries and bits of plastic, but then you do get, I mean, the amount of stuff. I say this with some feeling because we take it home and we wash it. At least we've got a lady that helps us. We wash it, and you get a whole piece of newspaper full of little bits of stuff, and you realise that where people have lived, particularly in the sort of materialistic age that has been the last 300 or 400 years, when there's been a lot of stuff about, it all ends up out there. I mean, there's something really of a revolution goes on in the 17th century, really, when people go from having very little of anything, to suddenly there's more metal, there's more pottery, there's glass comes in, and you end up, of course, with more broken stuff and more.
And you always seem to get blue and white ware, regardless of where you are.
Well, that's you get the only religious joke in archaeology is about that. You know, Adam talking to God when he's in his garden says, you know, I am the first man on earth, aren't I? And God said, oh yes, yes. Are you absolutely sure about that? There's never been anybody here before. No, 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 you are the first one. How come when I dig my garden then it's full of blue and white pottery, you know? Because it is, isn't it? Everywhere you go, it's full of blue and white pottery.
One of the things that, you know, looking at that load of people there this morning, June's organised them locally.
Yeah.
If you had a group of people who were enthusiastic about the past, what advice would you give them how to start the process of forming a society to begin looking at the landscape and then at their village? Have you got any sort of shorthand tips for them?
I think the first shorthand tip is that, and we had to decide this in my village in Somerset recently, in Winscombe, is that actually you don't throw it open to the whole village, because people's enthusiasm and interest just overwhelms you. And you've almost got that today. You know,
I felt a bit overwhelmed this morning.
Absolutely.
They were disappointed too when they didn't get a test bit.
That's right. So that what you do, I think a better strategy really, if you don't have a large staff, you don't have a lot of money, is to start it with 2 or 3 people and then bolt people on as they express an interest, so that you can contain and develop and direct and organise their enthusiasm. If you put a note in the parish newsletter that says we're doing an archaeological project, anybody wants to join, come along, you'll be killed in the crush, so, basically, you know.
So keep the numbers down.
Keep the numbers down. Don't discourage anybody, but don't take them on gradually. And then I think you actually need to have a great deal of thought beforehand about what you actually want to know, how it can be achieved and how you organise it.